Hi everyone, it's great to have you here again. It's been a few weeks since the last episode, but today we are returning with with an interesting topic about pricing psychology. In this episode, we are going to talk about something that influences every business, every customer, and every purchase decision. That is the psychology of pricing. Today we are doing something very special. So we are going to learn advanced business English vocabulary while we explore how people really think about prices. Okay, these are not basic words, and these are expressions that is commonly used in marketing and behavioral economics and high-level business conversations. So I will explain each one briefly so you can add it to your vocabulary and start using it confidently. Okay, okay. Now today we'll talk about, for example, okay, price anchoring. That is how the first price someone sees influences all the others. Then we are going to see the loss aversion. Is the aversion is the idea that people fear losing more than they enjoy saving. Then we have value proposition. Is the deeper reason someone chooses you instead of someone cheaper. Okay. Then we have the decision fatigue. Okay. Is when clients feel overwhelmed and choose what feels safest. And we have then the trust premium. That is the extra. It's commonly that the people are willing to pay when they trust a provider. Okay, and we have then the choice architecture. Is the way you present options. Okay, that shapes the client's decision. Okay, so these concepts sounds advanced, but well, don't worry. I will explain you through with real examples and simple explanations. So now let me start with a question. Also, I ask that question many times. That is, have you ever had a client who said that's too expensive, and but later bought something even more expensive from someone else? And well, and that is pricing psychology. And because people don't make decisions only with logic, and in most of the time they make decisions with emotions, biases, and personal perception. So in this episode, you're going to learn why clients don't always choose the cheapest option, how psychological principles influences price decisions, how to use advanced in business English expressions to explain value, not just cost. Okay, so all right, let's get started. Okay, before we go deeper into the theory, let me start with a real story from my experience. And I will use some advanced business English terms to explain what was happening behind the topic. Okay, okay. A few months ago, a client contacted me and said me she wanted the cheapest curtains possible. But something interesting happened. When I also showed her a premium option, like meaning a higher quality, higher price product, she suddenly changed her expression. Like she started touching the fabric, comparing the texture, checking the color. She asked questions, but what was happening? This is a concept that is called price anchoring. Okay, so price anchoring means that the first price you see becomes a mental reference point for every other price. Okay, so when she saw the basic cheap option first, and then the more expensive option later, but her brain automatically compared both. So here's the interesting part: is that she didn't choose the cheapest one. She chose the median option, not the lowest, not the highest, the one in the middle. And this is what psychologists call choice architecture. Okay, so and what is choice architecture? Okay, again, is the way you present options and how that presentation influences the decision. But why did she choose the middle option? Okay, because it's is of something called loss aversion. Okay, so loss aversion means people prefer avoiding losses more than they enjoy saving money. Like in her mind, buying the cheapest option meant she might lose durability, quality, or long-term satisfaction. So instead of saving money, she focused on avoiding the feeling of regret later. Okay, that's the way that she choose the middle option. So okay, and here comes another advanced concept, that is emotional justification. And people often make decisions emotionally, most of the cases, but then they justify them rationally. They can say, for example, like a client that said to me once that she said, well, this medium option has better fabric, better colors, better durability. So it makes sense, right? But the truth is that emotionally, she already felt safer with it. It felt like okay, so it is feel like the smarter and safer choice, and this is called also related to something called a trust premium. Okay, a trust premium is the extra amount um, that people are willing to pay when they trust the person providing the service. And she wasn't just buying curtains; she was buying in that moment trust, right? Trust, confidence, peace of mind that she wouldn't regret her choice. Okay, and that shows us something very important. Okay, that people don't always choose the cheapest price. They choose the price that feels the most aligned with value, confidence, and security. Okay, so again, we are going to review the terms. Okay, that we used. Okay, again, we have the price anchoring. That is the first price you see affects how you judge all other prices. Okay, then we have the choice architecture. Is the way you present options. Okay, and these options influences what people choose. And we have the loss aversion. Okay, is people prefer avoiding losses more than saving money. We have other emotional justification. Okay, as we said, are the decisions start emotionally, then we explain them logically. Okay, and we have trust premium, that is the extra that the client is willing to pay because they trust you. Okay, why I say these concepts are more used in marketing, in customer psychology, and behavioral economics. Okay, so you can use them in business too. Okay, then we go to the deep concepts. Okay, we're going to go to the deep concepts, and now that we've explored the story, okay, Um, we are going to mention three advanced psychological principles that influence how people react to prices. So these concepts come come from behavioral economics, consumer psychologically, and strategic marketing. How I mentioned, and they can completely change the way we think about pricing in our business. So the first one we have the cognitive biases. So cognitive biases is one of the biggest factors behind pricing decisions. Yeah, it is called cognitive bias. A cognitive biases is a mental shortcut that our brain uses to make decisions quickly. But these shortcuts often lead us to decisions that are not fully logical. And I will give you a very clear example. Is when a client sees a very cheap product, they immediately think the quality must be bad. That's a price bias. Okay, they believe that the price equals quality. And the opposite is also true, is when something is expensive, people assume it must be better, even when it's not. And we have another cognitive bias, is the confirmation bias. Okay. So the confirmation bias is when someone believes something is cheap or good quality. Um, and their brain looks for signs that confirm that option. So in business, understanding these biases helps you explain, okay, the value more clearly. Mm. Okay, next we have the perception management. And this second concept is this means that guiding the way clients interpret your prices and your service. Okay, and when you present your options with confidence, clarity, and structure, you are managing perception. Okay, for example, if I say this curtains is $100 or 100 bolivianos in this case, okay, that's just a number. But if I say this curtains is 100 bolivianos, because it includes premium fabric, installation, measurements, warranty, and even after sales support, this changed the perception completely. Okay, and here we have another advanced expression that is the comparative framing. Okay, and comparative framing means that showing a price side by side with other options to give it context. Okay, so people understand prices better when they can compare, not when they see them alone. Okay. Okay, as we mentioned the perception management, okay, how influencing how clients interpret your price, comparative framing, okay, presenting prices next to each other for context, and we have interpretation, is how the client understands the information, and we have the third point, is the decision fatigue. Okay, the third concept is decision fatigue, as I said, and this is when the client becomes tired of choosing because there are too many options or too much information that happen in these days. That is more often, and when decisions fatigue appears, people choose what feels easiest or safest, not necessarily what is cheapest. Okay. For example, I've seen clients completely freeze when there are too many fabric choices, and obviously they get overwhelmed. So instead of choosing the cheapest option or the most expensive option, they choose the one you recommend. The one that feels reliable or safe or fast. Okay. And this is why offering curated options is effective. Okay. And curated options in this case means you filter, okay, and show the best two or three selections instead of 10 options that in most of the cases these 10 options are unorganized. Okay. Okay, and well, until now we see that price is not just a number. Okay, price involves psychology, emotion, trust. Clients don't make perfectly rational decisions, and they make emotional decisions. Um, and now let's wrap up today's episode with a quick summary of everything we learned about the psychology of pricing. So until now, we explore why people don't always choose the cheapest option, and how pricing is deeply influenced by psychology, emotions, mental shortcuts. So until now, we learn that clients make decisions through cognitive bias that we mentioned, that is the mental shortcuts that influence their perception of price and quality. Then we have the perception management. Okay, is how the way we present our prices shapes the client's interpretation. And the third is decision fatigue, is when clients feel overwhelmed. They choose what feels simplest and safest. And in the previous examples, we saw how concepts like price anchoring, loss aversion, and choice architecture explain real behaviors in real situations. Oh yeah, yeah. And until now, we see that clients are not looking for the cheapest option. They are looking for the option that feels trustworthy, safe, and worth it. And now let's quickly review today's advanced business English vocabulary. Okay. Until now, okay, has a core message. We have price anchoring. Okay, the first price that sets the reference point. Okay. Then we have the choice architecture, is how options are presented influences decisions. And loss aversion people is when people prefer avoiding losses over saving money. Then we have the trust premium, is extra clients pay when they trust you. Then we have cognitive bias, is mental shortcuts affecting decisions. And comparative framing is showing prices side by side. Decision fatigue, okay, is tiredness from too many choices. And curated options is a simplified selected group of choices. Okay, right now the key insight, okay, here's okay, is people don't buy the cheapest product. They buy the option that feels like the safest or the smartest decision. And understanding the psychology behind prices helps you communicate in a way that transmit confidence, right? Trust and long-term loyalty. Okay, okay, right now I want to thank you so much for listening to Business English with Martin. I hope this episode gave you a deeper understanding of how pricing really works. Not only in numbers, but in perception, emotion, and in decision making. And if you found today's lesson helpful, feel free to share it with a friend or colleague who wants to improve their business English and grow their small business. And remember, okay, every price tells a story. When you understand that story and the psychology behind it, you communicate your value with confidence and purpose. And thanks again for joining me today, and I will see you in the next episode.